By the authority vested in me as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, in order to effect the appropriate disposition of individuals currently detained by the Department of Defense at Guantanamo, and promptly to close the detention facility at Guantanamo consistent with the national security and foreign policy interests of the United States and the interests of justice, I hereby order. And we then provide the process whereby Guantanamo will be closed no later than 1 year from now.
And that was 1 year ago, January. Remember when Guantanamo was going to be closed by January of this year? It is now August, and they assure us that the plan to close Guantanamo is still the plan. But at this point, Guantanamo is not only still open, it is still open for whatever it is that is Guantanamo's business. Today, jury selection began there for the first war crimes trial since President Obama took office. And reporters are on hand at Guantanamo to cover this so-called trial. At least they're sort of there to cover it. In May, the Pentagon invoked new rules that it used to ban four reporters from covering the trials of suspected terrorists at Guantanamo. The four were three Canadian reporters and the Miami Herald's Carol Rosenberg. They were banned without any hearing whatsoever. In fact, none of them was given any notification that they were even being considered for this kind of action. In a July 26th commentary, Carol Rosenberg detailed some of the rules for reporters now that she said can change daily. She wrote, quote, "I don't break the rules. I protest the ones that make no sense." Now they've got a new expansive interpretation of military censorship authority. A colleague calls it a bid to impose collective amnesia on reporters of things we've known for years. I say protect the secrets that are secret, not the prerogative. Don't create a bunch of ad hoc rules that keep us from doing our jobs. Some days we can't challenge all of them. They come too fast without rhyme or reason. Joining us now from Guantanamo is NBC national investigative correspondent Michael Isikoff. Michael, thanks very much for joining us tonight.
Great to be with you, Rachel.
First of all, give us the big picture on the trial that you're covering there, what this means and how important a case this is.
Well, it's actually a very big deal. The case is that of Omar Khadr. He's a Canadian detainee who's accused of lobbing a hand grenade that killed an American Special Forces medic in a firefight in Afghanistan 8 years ago. And as I think you indicated, it's the first big test of the new revamped, improved Obama military commissions. And how it goes is going to depend, it will make a big difference in the administration's hopes to try as many as 30 to 40 Guantanamo detainees in these new military commissions. But some of the circumstances of this trial make administration officials wince. Khadr, at the time of the alleged incident, was only 15 years old. And human rights groups have caused an outcry over this, saying, you know, how can you put on trial somebody who was a teenager at the time of the alleged crimes? Today, a United Nations official, top United Nations official, denounced the administration for proceeding with this case, saying it will endanger the status of child soldiers all over the world, that people like Khadr should be considered victims, not war criminals.
In terms of your ability to cover this trial, not only just those controversial elements, but being able to just report on the way this process works now and what's going to happen to Mr. Khadr ultimately, are you feeling like the media restrictions, the rules under which you're forced to operate in covering this, are unduly constraining or worse than you've experienced in your other trips to cover Guantanamo over the years?
Well, look, Rachel, it's always been surreal coming to Guantanamo. I remember the last time I was here, it was for Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's and the 9/11 conspirators' arraignment in 2008. And at one point, there was court testimony about the medications that were being given to Ramzi bin al-Shibh to sedate him because he'd been uncooperative. And at that point, the white noise went on, and we weren't allowed to hear anything about what the medications that were given to him to sedate him were. And we asked why. We were told that his HIPAA medical privacy rights had to be protected. Now, Ramzi bin al-Shibh was a high-value CIA detainee who had been in a black site prison for years, cut off from any access to any lawyer, any trial, denied any rights at all, but they were protecting his medical privacy rights. In this case, the same sort of circumstances arise. We haven't when Carol Rosenberg and the Canadian reporters were kicked out, it's because they identified the name of an interrogator, interrogator number 1, who was the first one to interrogate Omar Khadr at Bagram Air Force Base. And they identified him. His name was Joseph Klaus. And Klaus, in fact, had identified himself. He'd given public interviews saying he was the interrogator at Bagram who questioned Omar Khadr. But for that reason, because the reporters were excluded for publishing what was public information. There's just so much around here. I mean, to me, among the most absurd, surreal aspects of this is all the restrictions on what you can take pictures of. You can't take pictures of the coastline here at Guantanamo. There's a courtroom right behind me that we are barred from showing to you. There's barbed wire that surrounds it. Presumably, if Al-Qaeda saw the courtroom, it could send its Air Force to dive bomb the courtroom, or if it saw the coastal line, it could send its submarines to have a commando team to rescue the detainees here. It's really hard to draw a direct connection between the actual security threat and the kind of rules we have here.
It's like a freaking Kafka novel is what it is. It's unbelievable. Michael Isikoff, NBC and national investigative correspondent, I am very glad that you were there covering it, and I am very sorry about the rules that our government has put on your ability to do your job. But thanks for being there, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rachel.